Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and a big hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining me live on Behance. If you are tuning in, let us know who you are and where you're tuning in from. We've got Julia and Jennifer and Joseph and Joss and Cars and Casimano, Ed, and One Sock Wonder, Ali, Dusan possibly, who reminded me of yesterday's amazing blooper that I posted on Twitter. There will be no pants being lost today. If you don't know what I'm referring to, go to my Twitter account, twitter.com/Pinsky. You can find out all about the magical wonders that went on yesterday. Christina is from Pasadena. Hope you're all staying safe over there. Ed from Mexico. Hey everyone, great to see all of you. New York City, Portland, Oregon, Spain. Yeah, I hope everyone's staying safe, staying indoors, washing their hands, staying away from others when you can. We're all gonna get through this thing. But in the meantime, we've got Adobe Live. So we're gonna jump into today's daily creative challenge. Head on over to behance.net/challenge/XD. You can find all the information about the challenges. We are on day number 3, I believe. So if you haven't registered yet, you can hit that big blue button at the top, register, you get notifications when new challenges are available. And then every single day, Monday to Friday, you're gonna receive a new challenge around 8 o'clock Pacific time. You can join us in our community chat on Discord, and here it is right over here. We have about 40,000 designers in there. 40,000 designers. That's more people than some cities. Crazy. There's a lot of different channels in there. You can get all the information about the daily creative challenges. You can get new tips about XD if there's new features. I just posted a new video in the pro tips section all about using anchor links to create a back to top interaction. Go check that out. Not now, but eventually. If you need some inspiration, there's some in there. And of course, there's the current challenge section where you can post what you're working on for these daily challenges. And I'm in there giving feedback. We've got some great mentors, including Chris and Joss and Peter and Tim. A lot of cool people in there helping out as much as possible. And of course, if you have questions or you want to share tips and tricks, we've got channels for that as well. So hop in Discord. It is optional. You don't have to go in Discord to participate in the challenges, but it's a great community, especially in times like this where we need person-to-person contact. We need to talk to someone. Hop in Discord. Just, have a good time. Every single day around 2 o'clock Pacific time, I'm going to be live kicking off whatever challenge is for the day, and I'll get to today's challenge in just a second. And then you're going to share your work. Again, you can share it in Discord, or you can post it on Behance using the keyword XD Daily Challenge. That way we can search and we can find your stuff and hopefully feature it at some point. Boop indeed, Danish. All right. To recap, so far, we've touched on plugins. We started the process of this challenge talking about how we can use plugins to grab icons and various other things. And we built out the navigation bar of this dashboard. And I should probably point out that over the course of these 2 weeks, it's a progressive challenge. So we're going to be building out a dashboard until next Friday. Yesterday, we explored content-aware layout and how if you don't turn on responsive resize for certain elements, interesting things can happen. Again, if you missed that, head over to twitter.com/Pinsky. You can laugh along with my misfortune, but it was a good time. We built out the content, we built out the CTA at the very top of the dashboard, and today we're going to be exploring one of my favorite features in Adobe XD, one of the features that has been there since day one, repeat grids. So if you haven't grabbed the starter file yet, if you want to start from scratch, you can grab the first starter file right here. Or if you just want to catch up and not really worry about designing everything else, you can grab this starter file. Every single day it's going to be updated, so you'll be able to just dive in and have a good time. All right. Here we go. Let's hop over. Actually, before we do that, very quickly on letsxd.com/remote work. If you are working remotely, maybe for the first time, I just put that in the chat. The team put together a great landing page on all the different features in XD that can help you work remotely, because I know a lot of designers didn't work remotely before and they're kind of trying to figure everything out. So there's a lot of different resources on this page, including a brand new plugin. This plugin blew me away, which I'll touch on at some point, that will really help you work remotely. So anyways, here we go. To Adobe XD we go. here is the template for today, which is day number 3. And again, your challenge is to create a top post section using repeat grids. Now, you may have questions about what top posts are, and I would encourage you to use your imagination, but I'm going to show you kind of what I interpret that to be. And we're going to just dive in here. I'm going to hide my guides for a second. And this is kind of where we're at. So we built the navigation page on Tuesday, or navigation bar on Tuesday. And then over here, we built this CTA using content aware layout, especially with the button. So if we did want to change the button, right, it automatically resizes. And if you missed that video, head on over to the Behance landing page and you'll be able to rewatch that. But today, right down here at the bottom, we're going to be building out a section using repeat grids that's going to focus on maybe some of the top posts that your friends are posting, or maybe things that you're posting, whatever it might be. Again, I would encourage you to take whatever theme that you're working on and get creative with it. So here we go. Now, because we want to kind of keep things modular, right? And this section over here to the right, we're going to be working on tomorrow. So we're purposely keeping this section a little bit bland and mysterious. But down here, we might want to put maybe 3 posts going across. Now, I want to show you a tip that's going to help you out quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn my guides back on, and we're going to talk a little bit more about guides yesterday. But I dragged out, let me actually put these back just so we can, see what's going on. What I can do is I can just over here to the left side of an artboard, or at the top if we need one, we can just grab this invisible area and just drag out a guide. It snaps to your layers really nicely. And this will just help me align everything as we're designing, right? So again, we might want 3 cards of images going across this artboard. Now, sometimes as designers, we like to eyeball things. Like, we'll grab a rectangle, we'll draw one out, something like this, or I'm holding down the shift key to constrain it to a perfect square. And then, we'll just kind of, maybe almost got it, right? And of course, you can use content aware, you can use responsive resize to kind of stretch these across. But maybe you want to get a little bit more precise. So I have my rectangle, and I might want to, round at the corners a little bit. And again, I think it was 28 pixels possibly for this container. Yep, I used 28 pixels for the corner radius of this container. So I can do the exact same thing over here, 28. And I can also sample using my eyedropper, shortcut key I, just sample this right here. And then I can turn off the border. So now we have one of our rectangles. Now, if we want to get really precise and make sure, so Anna is asking, what's the shortcut for guides? It's Command or Control, and then semicolon. You can also go up to the View menu, down to Guides, and then all the options are right there as well. And Joss just posted it in the chat. Thank you, Joss. So you might want to make sure that you can fit all 3 of these squares inside this area. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to grab the handle and I'm going to stretch it all the way across so it snaps to that guide over on the right. Now, within the Properties Inspector, some of you may not know this, especially if you're brand new to Adobe XD, you can do math equations in the Properties Inspector, which is really cool because most of us, including me, didn't pay attention in math class, and I would not be able to do this calculation otherwise. So we've got 884. I'm simply going to put the backslash 3, which is divided by 3, right? So now we have a square that'll fit, the 3 of them will perfectly fit. But of course we want to make sure that there's a little bit of padding on those squares. So I can simply go, let's say -8 if I wanted 8 pixels, right? So now that we have this great looking square, I can go ahead and create a repeat grid. Up at the top, you can press the repeat grid button just like this, and you have to go boop. You have to. It's required by design law. You have to boop or make some sort of noise when you hit the repeat grid button. You can also use the shortcut Command Control R, and then I'll add a repeat grid as well. So once that's done, I can drag out 3 additional cards, just like this. I can space them out, and it's almost 8 pixels. I think the fractions, because of the weird division, threw it off a little bit, but that's okay. We now have 3 cards that fit really nicely in this area, which is exactly what we want. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and name this Top Posts. Posts, there we go. And of course, if you wanted to, you can grab the repeat grid handle at the bottom, drag that down, and you'll be able to have additional cards going downwards as well. We're going to talk about repeat grids again tomorrow, but for now, we've got 3 posts going across. But of course, they don't look that exciting, right? We need some images, we need some additional information. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dive into this grid. And the cool thing about repeat grid, yeah, math equations, isn't that amazing? You can do some pretty advanced math equations just inside of the properties inspector. And Gail has her mind blown right over there. So the nice thing about repeat grid, and yeah, Richard says, shout out to Pablo Stanley's illustrations. They're great stuff. So we've got our rectangle, right? And the cool thing about repeat grids is that any changes you make inside of one of the cells will populate on all of them. So let's say we wanted to have another rectangle specifically for images. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate, Command and Control D. I'm going to change the color just so we can see it against the background. And I'm going to just pull this up. And you're noticing it's all updating, right? Across all of them. It doesn't matter how many repeat grid cells you have, it's going to magically update very nicely. So we've got this. I'm just going to name this images, just like that. And then maybe down below we might want maybe the title of this image. So I'm going to grab my text tool and, right? Now obviously we can't see that, which is a problem. So I'm going to change the color. And that's way too big. So I'm going to grab this little handle, just drag it downwards just a little bit. And I might want to, we use the Rift typeface up at the top. I might want to bring that in as well. So I'm simply going to change this to Rift. Maybe I'll make this nice and bold and pop it somewhere right about here. Maybe I'll go for Demi, just so it's not super bold and in our face. There we go. Perfect. That looks good. Now maybe down below we might want something else. Maybe we want to highlight some of our friends who have either liked the post or maybe, this is all going to be burrito related. So maybe it's all of our friends who have eaten the same burrito. I don't know. Who knows, right? So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool, draw one out, holding down Shift to constrain it. We've got one circle looking pretty good. Turn off the border. And I'm going to use repeat grid one more time. Again, Command and Control R to very quickly do that. And I'll drag, let's say, 4 or 5 out. And I can just make these a little bit smaller if I wanted to, and we'll get a little bit fancy with it, in a little bit. And again, because this is a repeat grid, you can very easily make changes, and it's going to populate across the entire grid, which is nice, right? All right. So Danish, are these single layers or a big layer which modifies the whole grid? So each cell of the repeat grid is different. So you can just change any of them and they work. And as you'll see in a moment, as we drag in images, those images will populate as well. So they can be different. And once we use components, then you can override things within a repeat grid. There's a lot of different ways to use repeat grids, which is really cool. So we've got some information inside of this grid, right? We might want to make a few changes. And again, everything just updates really nicely. And once we start adding content, we'll probably make a few more tweaks as well. But of course, we need that content. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over to Finder, and I've got these images here. I also have a blank plain text document. And what I would love for all of you in the chat as you're watching is I've got these images of great looking burritos that I grabbed from Unsplash. And I want all of you to contribute names of these burritos and get creative with it. Have fun with this. Just don't name it like meat burrito. That's boring. Get creative with it, and I'll keep a look at the chat. But all we have to do now is we've got these 3 images. We can just drag them directly into the grid, and it automatically fills them in. And if you need to, you can always double click, and you can adjust the scaling and position, just like that. I can double click again. Whoop. There we go. Just that, and that looks pretty good, right? Perfect. And of course, we could do the same thing for our friends at the bottom. And Allison said, "Matt, I'm really craving. I had a burrito for lunch, and it was pretty good. It was one of those Beyond Meat burritos. Very good." So we've got also these images at the bottom, right, in part of the repeat grid, and we might want to put some people's faces in there. And I'm going to make sure to name this friends, right? And how do we do that? Well, of course, we could go ahead and drag in some images. And before we do that, I am seeing some names come through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to Finder. And again, I have this plain text document. There's nothing in it right now. But I'm going to go to a text editor, and I'm simply going to start grabbing. So Richard said chewy something burrito. Don't know what that says. And then we've got red dragon pepper burrito. Ooh, that sounds incredibly spicy. And then we've got, let's say, lunch hero from Julia. All right. Someone says El Pinsky. I think that's a great idea, but I'm going to run with these 3. I'm going to simply save this text document, and now I should probably actually make sure I have the .txt. I forgot to do that. There we go. So we have a plain text document on the with the burrito names, and just like we could with images, I'm going to make sure to zoom out so we can see this. We can just grab this entire document, drag it onto a text layer within Adobe XD, and boop, there we go. Now, I made a mistake, obviously. I have to make sure that this text layer is left justified, right? Now, of course, I could have done that later because repeat grids are magical, but I'm going to just drag this in, and there we go. We now have the names of our burritos inside of the grid. So if you are working with somebody who's managing a text document, and you can also do this with a Google Sheet with it, which is really cool, and I'll get to that at some point, but if you go to letsxd.com, there's stuff there. But yeah, very simple to populate a repeat grid with images and text. All right, going back to what I was talking about with this grid at the bottom of our friends, I'm gonna go to a plugin. And of course, you could use more images that you can bring in from Finder or Windows Explorer or whatever it's called. I think it's just called Explorer now. But we're going to use the UI Faces plugin. And let's go ahead and bring in This Person Does Not Exist one more time. And I talked about that previously. Very creepy stuff. Go to thispersondoesnotexist.com. It's completely algorithmically based, and these people don't exist. So I have that chosen. I'm going to make sure to choose an individual element within this grid, and I'm going to press Apply. And it's going to bring in, it's going to generate these random people's faces. It's going to bring it in. I don't have to worry about copyright issues or anything like that. And there we go. I now have people's faces inside of the grid. And maybe just to get a little bit fancy, I can dive in here, maybe add a little bit of a border on the inside, make sure the border is the same color as the background, right? And then I'll just add some negative padding to this repeat grid so that they all kind of overlap, right? Now they're a little bit pixelated, and of course in UI Faces, you can choose what the image size is 1 times or 2 times, and if you do bring in faces from, let's say, Unsplash, there's a good chance that the quality will be a little bit better. Now, what you're probably noticing in this repeat grid is that even though we have a repeat grid inside of a repeat grid, the exact same repeat grid exists in all of the cells, which you may not want. You may want different friends in this one than this one and this one, right? So here's a trick, and this is really fun. Because repeat grids by design keep everything up to date across all the cells, if you use components, it gives you the ability to override elements, which is really fun. So in my layers panel, I've got the friends repeat grid selected. Now I can make a component using a variety of ways. I can right click and go to make component. I can press Command and Control K. I can go to my assets panel and do it that way. I can also do it within the properties inspector. There's also a menu option. So there's a ton of different ways to create a component, but Command and Control K, boop, there we go. And we now have a component. And also, boop, one more time, just because, why not, right? So again, because component, at least the instances of the component, this one's the master, right? So if I make changes to this one, it's going to populate to the other ones. But if I wanted to override this one in particular, all I have to do is dive in, right? So I can just dive in, select the individual element within this repeat grid. I'm going to go back to my plugins. Let's go for Unsplash this time. Press Apply. It's going to do its thing. It's going to find a bunch of people's faces from Unsplash, and it's going to bring them in to this repeat grid. And what you're going to notice is it did not affect this one, and it did not affect this one. So now I can go into this one, right, and do the exact same thing. So now, even though this is inside of a repeat grid, I was able to override it, and I now have different friends in each and every one, which is super cool and super helpful, right? So there might be a few more things we might want to apply to this grid. Maybe over to the right, we might want some sort of information about how many people commented on this particular post, for example. So what I'm going to do is back in my plugins, I might want to find out, let's find maybe a chat bubble of some sort, or maybe we'll go for message possibly. Here we go. This message circle looks pretty good. Let me make sure am I inside the grid? Gotta make sure you're inside the grid so that it does populate, which is good. Lisa's asking, is Unsplash a plugin in XD? So Unsplash is a website that has royalty-free images provided by photographers from all around the world, but there are a few plugins that integrate with Unsplash, including UI Faces, and I believe there's a stock plugin as well. So let me go ahead and bring this in. make sure to, there it is. It was hiding on me. All right, so I've got my chat bubble. I might want to make it a little bit smaller and maybe drop the border a touch to maybe 2 pixels. I might want to, let's say, flip it horizontally. Maybe I'll line it up. Now I can take a look at the repeat grid. This is about 21 pixels over from the left. So I'll just kind of make sure I'm holding down my Alt key or Option key. And as I hover over top of certain areas, it's going to let me know how far this object is from wherever I'm hovering over. So yeah, it's about 20, there we go. That's pretty good. And of course, because there's fractional pixels on this particular path, you know, I can always make some changes if I need to, but that looks pretty good. All right, so we've got this chat bubble, but we also might want some information on how many comments there are. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a little bit of a kind of like a cutout, but I'm going to get very simple with this. I'm going to grab an ellipse, draw one out like this, turn off the border, set the fill to this background color, and you know, that's all you have to do. You don't have to get too crazy with it. Just add a little bit of a cutout, right? An ellipse over top of it. And then I might want to, let's say this will be 24, maybe 24 comments. And I'm going to make sure that this chat bubble is the same color as 24. That looks pretty good. I'll make sure to center that. That looks okay. Maybe I'll bold it. Bold. Yeah. There we go. All right. And again, repeat grids by design pushes all those changes to all the other cards. So now I can go in here. And because text layers can automatically by default be overridden, I can just do like, let's say 68 over here, and I might want to go for 13 comments over here. Because for whatever reason, that one was just not performing very well. So that's looking pretty good. And of course, if you wanted to get a little bit creative, you can add shadows to these sorts of things. And there's a lot of different things you can do. And maybe you can also add maybe like a, here, let's do this while we have another minute or two. I'm going to add one more like this, right? I'm not sure. You know what? Let's do it like this. Drag this out, right? Like that. Make sure it's the same size. I'm going to add a border just like we did before. But the fill, I'm going to sample one of these pinks over here. There we go. Make the border a little bit thicker, just like that. Those people are very pixelated. But of course, when you are at 100%, they look great. Those are great looking people, right? And I might want, let's say, +3. I just let you know that there's 5 of the ones that are visible over to the left, plus 3 additional ones. And look at that. That looks pretty good. Oh, you know what I noticed? I did not place those elements inside of my repeat grid. They're kind of floating up here. So all I have to do is copy them, go into the repeat grid, and paste. There we go. Now we have them all inside of the grid. I do need to make this a little bit larger to match. There we go. That looks pretty good. I'm going to make some tweaks to this lovely number over here, make it a little bit smaller. Right? How are things looking, everyone? I think things are looking pretty fancy. And I'm really excited to see what all of you do in your designs, because I've seen some interesting challenges come over the last few days. There we go. And bam, we are done, right? So we've created this top post section within our dashboard. And just to recap one more time, we've got our navigation bar over to the left. We have our CTA up at the top, and we're going to get a little bit creative with it a little bit later on in the challenge, and we're going to put like a search bar up here, and then tomorrow we're going to explore what all of this section over here is going to look like. So you're starting to notice that, especially with something like this, right, this little element here, we're kind of pulling in some of the colors from the navigation bar, and we're very nicely sprinkling it throughout our design. And of course, if I wanted to make sure it was consistent, I can dive in here, sample this color up here. Again, it pushes it throughout everything on our design. So there we go. That's just about gonna do it for me for today. We've got our top post, and we're gonna talk about, actually we're not gonna fill out this area tomorrow. We're actually gonna fill out this area tomorrow, and then next week we're gonna fill out this area to the right. So stay tuned for that. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Christina and Bernadette and Akin and Richard and Jennifer and Voodoo Val, Lisa, Ali, Ole, and everyone else joining me here today. What day is it? I don't even know what day it is. Thursday, I think. That's about it. I will see you all tomorrow. Stick around in just a few minutes. Kyle Webster is coming up. Some great drawing. I watch his stuff and I'm just always mind blown because I can't draw at all, but he just makes it look so easy. So stick around just a few minutes. Kyle's gonna be up and I'll see you all tomorrow.